Hello, you're watching Beyond Markets, where we bring you up to speed on development outcomes on the continent. I'm Kenneth Igbomor. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. On today's show, we'll be looking at the niggling challenges in Nigeria's power sector, and these headlines are making the rounds again. We'll find out some of the hitches that are affecting the power privatization process in Nigeria and also the challenges in the value chain. You can join the conversations. Let us know what you think. The hashtag to use is Beyond Market. You can also hit me up at Kenneth Igbomor, and also the CNBC Africa hashtag web link is at CNBC Africa. Now, the Senate in Nigeria are calling for a comprehensive review of the power privatization policy, as they say the current arrangement does not seem to be working. And I have with me George Etomi, he's the director at Eko Electricity Distribution Company. He joins me now to discuss the issues. Thank you so much for your time today, sir. And I'd like to understand how we found ourselves back here again.
The Senate, yes, I read it like you did, that they're trying to ask for a comprehensive review of the privatization process because, as they put it, it's not working. Well, my reaction to that is until we see what the full terms of reference would be for this comprehensive review, it will be very difficult to agree or disagree with it in one way or the other. But what is pertinent here is that there are too many reviews going on regarding this privatization process. The House of Representatives, if you recall, last week also said they too were looking into the power sector. We have something going on with the National Economic Council. We also have other initiatives. What all these just portend is that there is a lack of proper policy direction about what is required to get the power sector going. And if you look back at its history, the reason why we've never really had traction with most of the reviews in the power sector has been this, what I call policy inconsistencies. And no sooner does a new government come in that they either disown or totally abrogate what may have been done by the previous government. And we're seeing this play out. And it's so unfortunate because it affects investor confidence in this environment, and it actually endangers the investments of those who've already put money into the sector. As we have consistently maintained, there is nothing wrong with the process itself. The process was of high international standard. It was observed by the World Bank and those others who were interested. It was very transparent, and those who want it on the merit. What we have always had is been that in terms of its implementation on the policy side, the government has been consistent. All the agreements reached prior to when the sale took place were not honored, still haven't been honored. And 5-6 years ago, we kept saying, do it. And it's not been done. But unfortunately, we have COVID-19 and we have collapsing oil prices. And all of a sudden, the government now realizes there's no more money in the kitty and they cannot continue to support the sector. So in what I would essentially call a fire brigade approach, you want to review everything. And when you review it, to what purpose? I even hear or read about reversing the privatization process with all the consequences. Does the government have the money to refund investors? How will that impact on investor confidence globally? What we require is just that consistency. A regulator that is encouraged to be independent. We've had too many regulatory inconsistencies as well, and that's obviously on account of the body language of the government being different from what the regulator would like to do. But I am an incurable optimist.
All right, so, but you understand me when I say, because looking at the comments from the El-Rufai, who was the head of the ad hoc committee in January, he mentioned the fact that about 1.7 trillion has been spent already in the power sector. He also made assertions that solutions must be found and that these solutions are not going to be nice. And looking at how things have played out since then, yes, you rightly say that there hasn't been, there weren't any issues with the privatization process in itself. It was more or less the implementation. But I would like to, get your thoughts from you on, how we can move ahead from here. Because if we have this process that is not working 100%, how can we make tweaks along the way?
Those monies consisted of what I call legacy debts owed to the supply side of the business, i.e. the gas producers and the generating companies. They were legacy debts that are being cleared slowly. Again, it's all part of the policy inconsistency that this has happened. Gas has been artificially priced, so the government is forced to subsidize. On the retail end, electricity prices are artificially placed and below cost, so the government is also forced to subsidize. And you cannot do that when you've already privatized the sector. This is the worry that I have. Some of the mindset that it should go back to government, I really don't know how that will lead us anywhere. But to give a direct answer to your question, how do we move forward? We remember the last time we spoke, we said that the distribution company supported the initiative by the government to bring in Siemens through the export credit grant that will be given by the German government. And we're supporting it. We're waiting for the details. The reform targets transmission, which is a clearly weak link in this whole value chain, and the distribution companies. And I think that effort should be allowed to play out. But what is now happening is some of the governors are clamoring that the 40% that's left should actually go to the governors. So they want to come in. And that is presenting another food for thought in the value chain. You have government coming at a time when everyone thought there would be a slow progression towards divestment. But however they want to implement the report, my concerns would be try and respect existing contracts. The sanctity of contracts must be adhered to, so that we don't end up in another round of litigations or arbitrations or whatever. This is a solution that can be found after 6-7 years. So much has been learned on all sides, and we really need to sit down. The investment investors are Nigerians, government is Nigeria, regulators Nigeria. We must all sit like fellow countrymen and begin to essentially create the atmosphere of discipline that will enable us adhere to the contract. This is the way forward, and it will happen. To be specific, the elephant in the room was always this issue of cost-reflective tariffs. Happily, the regulator has finally come round to that question and says, okay, discos can now disaggregate their franchise areas. And now, on a willing buyer, willing seller basis, you begin to identify those who are willing to pay the right price. That is a veritable way forward, and it's a very positive development. The only snag here is that on account of the lockdowns occasioned by the COVID-19, this will not be the, in terms of timing, be the right time to now talk about tariff increase. Already, discos are reading from again, unclear signals as to whether or not consumers should pay electricity for 2 months. And as a result, their collections dipped. So we need to clear all that atmosphere out. But going forward, the way to do it would be to slowly get the government remove its hands from the sector. Just let the sector go. And I am positive that Nigerians who today spend so much on alternative power generation will embrace the willing buyer, willing seller formula. And then we can then begin to truly get the power that is required to the respective homes.
All right, but on the issue of tariffs you just rightly mentioned, it's been quite a lot for Nigerians to take in, especially if you look at the bills coming in from the last 2 months. For I myself have also been a victim of that as well. But then when you look at how much it is, and you ask yourself, we're trying to get these cost-reflective tariffs come on board, and we're supposed to be an increment. That was supposed to be taking place in June, July, and we're trying to understand how that is going to play out. But the Senate, on the other hand, is saying that they also want that scrapped.
Like I told you, even the discourse pushed back on having to go from July 1 to start cost-reflective regime or service-reflective regime, as the regulator calls it, all purely on account of the time. This is not the time. People have been locked in for 2 months. Their incomes have been compromised. It's not the kind of news you need to give to anybody. But as a principle, it is the way to go forward. When the Senate, with due respect to them, says scrap it, if it means scrap it now, temporarily, I can understand that. But if they're saying no tariff increase at all, it's going to set us back. Because, like I said, for as long as you do not have the right price for tariffs, you will not get the kind of investment that will open up the sector. And we've agreed that this sector is so crucial to the diversification of the economy. Otherwise, Nigerians will continuously look for other sources of energy, which as an aggregate is far more expensive than if they just yield to cost-reflective regime. In Eko Disco, our territory, we've spoken across the board to our consumers, and the bulk of them are willing, if they see electricity, to pay for the right price. And I think that's the direction we should be going.
When we return, we'll continue to bring you more on the conversation on the challenges in the power sector in Nigeria. I've been speaking to George Etomi, the director at Eko Electricity Distribution Company. More on Beyond Markets after the break. Welcome back to Beyond Markets. If you're just joining us, my guest today has been George Etomi. He is the director at Eko Electricity Distribution Company. We've been talking about the challenges in Nigeria's power sector. And before we left off, we're talking about tariffs. And moving on from there, though, I'd like to understand, sir, I'd like to know the level of engagement you are having with the power sector reform group.
The level of engagement, we are talking to them. But what we would actually prefer is a one-on-one between the distribution companies and the power reform group, because these guys have had their boots on the ground since the privatization exercise. And it is best to have those who have practical knowledge of the sector be in the room with you, share experiences with you, so that you can then work your policy or any reform against the background of knowledge. Otherwise, what it will just serve to do is to eliminate both sides, create mutual suspicion, and then, in my opinion, remove even the little gains that have been made. So again, I will keep saying that these matters can be discussed. There is a lot of experience on the table. We should tap into that experience. One thing is clear. The federal government cannot continue to carry load. The times are different. I don't even think we'll ever return to those times again. So what we will then do is to then create an enabling environment to ensure that once the sector is freed up, if it's been deregulated, then please let it be left deregulated. Today, what we find is you are told to do one thing. Just before implementation, the order is withdrawn. And then something happens, a new order comes in. We've just been suffering that sort of policy and regulatory inconsistency. So what we now require is the will to let the sector that has been privatized go, so that way it is then easy to apportion blame where it truly lies. But as things stand today, there's so much of the blame going around because everybody in the value chain hasn't done what they should do. And that includes the government itself. As we've always said, even the ministries, departments, and agencies are some of the greatest debtors to the sector. It just really doesn't make sense that they consume so much and they don't pay their bills. And you then expect the ordinary Nigerian to pay his bills. It's a bit of a stretch for that to happen. And meanwhile, it's so easy to deduct, because these monies are voted for during the budget session. It's so easy to deduct at source and make sure that these payments are made. But distribution companies are put through the hassle of trying to recover monies from government agencies that are totally and completely reluctant to do so. And that's not a good example. Now, the most vulnerable of consumers will always be what people describe as the poorest of the poor. In every system globally, the haves have always subsidized the have-nots, and it's not going to be any different in the electricity sector. In any case, the model we have been using and will continue to use will be to have those who can pay for it, sort of cross-subsidize those who cannot pay for it. So there is a way around a lot of these things. So I think that this thing calls more for dialogue than any type of heavy-handedness, because I'm always worried that we don't learn our lessons from history. Any time you've attempted to reverse a privatization or tinkered or tampered with it, it has never come out with positive results. You can have a plethora of that. If you go to the BP, they will give you numerous examples of the privatizations that failed on account of interference. When power is too big and too important to be allowed to fail.
It speaks to the wider structural issues happening in there, and I'd like to understand that these are issues that impact across the value chain of the power sector in Nigeria. But then I would like to pick you up on that engagement with Siemens. What's the progress of that as well?
The chief of staff, the late chief of staff, Pastor, he had actually engaged the DISCOs. The DISCOs had bought into the initiative. We had constructive meetings with Siemens. The money was going to be provided by the German government through Siemens. That's understandable. It's an export credit facility. It is not for free. It is designed to look at the ways the transmission and distribution networks can be strengthened to receive the available power that's generated today. As you know, if you remember the numbers, on paper, we have 7,000 megawatts available today. The transmission company can only do 4,000. And that's the number the DISCOs have to grapple with. So what they want to do is to remove all the bottlenecks to enable us in the first place take all 7,000, which would be a significant difference to what we have today. And then over a given period, ramp generation up to the installed capacity of 13,000, and then also have the ability to transmit and distribute those. So those were steady plans. The Siemens has spoken with the distribution companies. All their facilities that require either refurbishment or replacement, they have looked at it. They are looking at the pricing structure because pricing is very key. As I told you, this money is not for free. It's a loan and must be repaid. So it is therefore important that the cost at which a lot of these facilities are procured for make economic sense to the distribution companies. We will not build a power substation for 5 billion if we can get an equally good one for 1 billion. So those are the fine elements of the transaction we're looking at. So that's really where things are. And I believe if we continue along that trajectory, we will see a phenomenal difference. I just don't think that this blame game is going to take us anywhere. It's just too sad to look at everybody who just gets into the power sector, whether or not they understand it.
All right, but still on the value chain issues as well, I would like to get your thoughts on the newly reconstituted board of the Bulk Electricity Trading Company.
First of all, the bulk trader has been removed from the supervision of the Power Ministry to the Ministry of Finance, because really it was meant to just be an interventionist body. It was not supposed to be a permanent feature. If the privatization had been implemented faithfully, they should have disappeared from the scene now. Now, as a result of the difference between the cost of obtaining power and then selling it, the bulk trader was inserted in the transaction, and through power purchase agreements, they buy power from the generating companies. And then through vesting contracts, they put that power available to the distribution companies. So the shortfall is then absorbed by them. This is the role. So it's It's mainly a financial role. And that's why it perhaps makes sense for them to now move under the Ministry of Finance, where there can be a clearer picture of how those funds are moving. And as I told you, the bulk of those funds are monies from debts that were owed even before the privatization, and then the difference between the cost-reflective tariff and what they currently get it for. So this is role they play. So the composition appears very good. We have a very good Minister of Finance, and they can have their handle on the finances. But I don't want us to dwell for too long on the bulk purchase. We must rapidly move to stabilize the market so that the bulk trader can slowly get out of the scene and then allow a direct contact between the distribution companies and the generating companies. This is really ideally where the market should be moving to, in which case we will no longer be talking about subsidizing the market. You pay for what you get from the generating company.
All right, then let's get to this very important topic about investor confidence. We've seen quite a lot that has happened in here, the challenges with getting tariffs approved and implemented. We've seen quite a number of issues come on board in the power sector. But I'd like to know how this is dampening that investor confidence, and as well initiatives that you've seen that will also bring in new investors into the power sector, like the meter asset providers as well.
Yes, for those of us who have, let me say, who have our boots on the ground, nobody knows the subject better than the way it's affecting all these interferences I talked about, the way it's affecting investor confidence. We are daily looking out for those who are interested to carry the risk with us. And there are those too who are making inquiries. For the moment they look at your books, or your investments have actually been wiped out, your banks, basically, most discos, in fact, not all of them, are indebted to their banks. And in many cases, the banks actually appoint the chief financial officers of these distribution companies. Now, any investor who comes in under that sort of cloud will see a good business, but will be weary of getting into it for fear that he may get trapped in this cycle of interference. So it is affecting investor confidence. I'll tell you, for example, at the beginning, the BP actually did a road show abroad to see if they could get the heavy hitters to come into the sector. They didn't like what they saw and didn't come. And it's become worse even then. Nigerian investors took up the challenge, and it's become worse. I can tell you that if the global investment company, climate, the global investors are looking at how the way you are treating your own local investors. If you treat them badly, they will have absolutely no reason to be confident that you'll be treated any better. So for us, just let's level the playing field. We welcome investments, but I can tell you, nobody who has worked hard for his money will put in money into this sector as things stand today. So we must remove all the regulatory hitches, the policy inconsistencies, the distortions, because all these lack of cost-reflective tariffs and inconsistencies create a distortion that does not allow you to make your calculations. The banks themselves are a barometer for what is going on. The banks would hardly put money again in this sector. With all the amount of patriotism they have, no bank will lend any money to anyone who wants to go into this sector. So that gives you an idea of how investor confidence is shaken by inconsistencies.
All right, then. Quite a lot you've said there, and a lot to think about and reason about how the power sector in Nigeria can move ahead. Thank you so much for your contributions on the show, sir. We always appreciate your time on the show. I've been speaking to George Etomi, the director at the Eko Electricity Distribution Company. And that's it on Beyond Markets for today. And thank you so much for being a part of the show. Remember, you can catch the show at 5 p.m. West Africa time daily and have access to all episodes of Beyond Markets on our website. That's at cnbcafrica.com. You can also hit me up at Kenneth Igbomor. let me know what you think about the topics that we discussed. And the hashtag to use is Beyond Markets. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.